Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley is brought to you by Aggressive Marketing Solutions, your solution for all business social media needs. If you need a team of social media marketers and content creators to help you build your brand on social media, text WES 2020 to 541-709-6502 today. Get started building your brand on social media. Success is defined differently by every individual. Some have never even considered what it is. I hope when I get older I'll be successful. What does that even mean? Money? Cars? Big house? On this show, we strive to look at it a little deeper, learning from successful individuals on what they believe success really is and how to obtain it. Everybody, enjoy the show. This is Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley. Today we have a great guest. I'm very excited to introduce our coach and teacher, John Oliva. Coach Oliva is what I'm going to call him because he was actually my coach in high school. So I'm glad to have him here. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Glad you could make it. Hey, so it's great catching up with you today. I had a little phone conversation with you before, and I'm glad that you were able to do this at the last minute. I really appreciate you doing it.
Sure, absolutely. Glad to be here, Wes. Thank you.
Hey, so we start out, kind of every show talking about who you are, and I kind of want to know a little bit about who you are from the beginning, where you grew up, all those things. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I grew up pretty big family. I had brothers and sisters, older brothers, and they were. I grew up in Ontario, small town. Moved a lot, so there was a big challenge because we moved so much, going from school to school, town to town, and making friends was really hard. And so one of the things that my brothers introduced me is sports. And that kind of created, something for me because I was pretty shy, having to make friends all the time, new friends. And once sports introduced to sports, and just the game of football. Couldn't play basketball, couldn't hit that stupid little white ball coming at me. Actually, I led every team in strikeouts, any team I was played for. So, but growing up as a kid, sports was kind of like my key to finding out who I was. So that was it, man. That was it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say you're shy because as my coach, I never really would have thought of that because that's not the persona that you gave off when you were coaching us.
That's true. But see, that was the key. And that was part of the coaching style that I adopted. Now, I wasn't always that way, and that was part of growing up and being around other coaches. Because I went to coaches' clinics, and surrounding myself with other coaches that had like a persona that I admired. So that was part of me developing into the coach I was. Because, like I said, you would have never recognized I was shy in those early years, for sure.
So, football was the big thing, and you played in Ontario, and then that led to what? Where did you go after Ontario? What happened from there?
I got an opportunity with some other high school players around the area to go play for a junior college in Washington, Columbia Basin College, and that was a lot of fun. It was a nice introduction to college, what that was going to look like, being away from home. Played most of the season. There was times that I got hurt a couple of times. Just wasn't used to that kind of collision and stuff. Even though I enjoyed high school football, I transferred out of that college after one season and transferred to Boise State. And I think that's when I really grew as a player. I walked on at Boise State. I didn't have the skills to earn a scholarship at that time. I just wasn't good enough, but I just felt if I went to Western or some of those other colleges that are NAIA, and probably could have played more, but I wanted to surround myself with uh, higher level players. What was that going to look like? Even though I might be a tackling dummy, but it was something I really wanted to experience, and that was really what changed, in me as far as what I was introduced to, the level of play, what it takes to be successful, as an athlete and as a coach. That was the beginning.
So the challenge of being somewhere where there was just a little bit more than just being out there, driving yourself, pushing yourself just a little bit above what you were capable of doing.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely, absolutely.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that was the key. I didn't know what I was walking into. I just wanted to be part of something bigger, uh, even though I was probably physically not equipped for that level of ball. But I learned what it took to become that level of player through their programs and the coaches that I surrounded myself with. Definitely.
So then that must have been where it led to the fact that, hey, maybe you said you got injured before is what you had told me earlier. And then when you got injured, was the first thing you thought about after that was coaching because that was something that would have kept you going?
Yes, I had a coach. His name was Coach Phil Snow. He was the defensive back coach then later the defensive coordinator. He's he ended up coaching several schools. Arizona State, went to the Rose Bowl with them as a defensive coordinator. Did some coaching for the Detroit Lions as linebacker coach. Uh, Hung around football. Baylor, his recent stint was in Baylor. And I'll tell you, he's now recently hired to be the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. But here's the thing with Phil Snow. Yeah, we would go to meetings, position meetings, and what he taught us in those classrooms watching film, much of it wasn't film watching as much it was as understanding the game. Now the game has certain rules to the game, and I didn't know that. I thought you go out there, kick some ass, and get things done, get off the field, give the ball back to the offense. But pretty much it's not that simple. But he broke the game down to like a mindset, a strategic mindset where certain offenses can only do certain things. And once you understood that, then that's when you could really start putting players in position to make plays.
Becoming more of a student of the game as opposed to just a player.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's where, like I was saying, I didn't have the skill level, but what I did have is the intellectual ability to be on the field because of what he taught me and how I was able to, find success on the field that way and make it, I got a letterman's jacket in my closet. So that was a big deal. When they handed those out, I know I earned it.
Yeah, that's great. And so that led into you being kind of what'd you say, you were a student coach for a year there with them? I can't remember, graduate assistant. Is that what they called them?
Well, yeah, I would say a student coach. Graduate assistant is like a player that's on scholarship. I was more, I
Okay.
paid my way, and yes. So, but I hung out, did some filming, helped with the, setting up stuff for coaches meetings, and was around coaches that way.
So learning every aspect of the job is kind of what you were doing. You're learning how to do everything so you were able to make yourself invaluable.
Once I was hired to be be a first coach, it was the clinics. I would go to clinics and learn about techniques and drills and stuff like that. That was fun, but it was being around some of those other coaches. We spent a lot of time at University of Oregon, and one of the neatest coaches there at the time in the early '90s was this young wide receiver coach. His name was Chris Peterson, just a tiny little wide receiver guy, and he was doing some drills with his wide receivers, and he was just so excited about the game. His energy level was high. He was having fun with his players, and that's when I thought, you know what, that's the kind of coach that I would love to be. High energy, have fun with the guys, get out there. When things need to be serious, he was serious, as we all know.
Right.
But following him in his career, that's pretty exciting. Phil Snow, following him in his career, that's exciting. You have two different kind of coaching styles, both very successful. And I was so awesome. It's so awesome to be part of that. those coaches and their path. So that's been part of it. Huge deal.
That's pretty amazing. I did not know that. That's awesome
Yeah.
that you were able to be there, and now you get to watch him coach. I mean, he's done this year,
Yeah.
right? Didn't he? He retired this year or whatever he's doing. We don't know yet, but
Yeah.
that
Right.
that's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And there's
so
been
it's
other
like you've been
coaches too.
talking about quite a bit, is surrounding yourself with these people who you gravitate towards because they just have that same kind of mindset, that same kind of tone that you want to coach and teach.
Yeah, and that's that for me. Like I said, I was left that Columbia Basin Junior College, wanting to Boise State, knowing that was totally out of my league, but saying, you know what, this is an opportunity to put myself around coaches and players that are much better than I am, and I'm going to learn something from this. And then having access to these clinics and like other coaches, um, like Peterson and others, Dirk Cutter, spending a
Cutter,
lot of
yeah.
time with him. Yeah, spending a lot of time with Dirk Cutter in his office, learning how to put together screenplays. Being the offensive coordinator for the Ducks, that was pretty special. And then he went on to Boise State, and now he's coaching in the NFL. So it's been a treat to watch these guys blossom in their careers down the road, and having been part of some of their knowledge. So
Well, I
that's
don't
been
want to
exciting.
gloss over the Ontario part because that's where I think that's probably where like your big, where you first started coaching. But then there's some really cool stuff that happened after that I'm pretty excited about because I was watching you and following you over the past, 10 years and seeing you on Facebook posting these pictures. And you're actually in the Middle East coaching a
Yeah,
football team.
I was in the Middle East for the last 8 years, in Abu Dhabi, about an hour south of Dubai, and I was working for the Department of Education there. And at that time, they were introducing American football to the adults in Little League, and I wanted to give it a try, and was asked to coach for the Abu Dhabi Wildcats. And the players there, most of the players there came from military bases, U.S. military bases. So we had most of our kids that had some knowledge in football, and most of them, being military, are pretty tough individuals. But there was some Arabic kids in there too, and some Brits, um, people from Great Britain as well. So that's a different coaching style for sure. Because these kids, I'll tell you the truth, the military kids are tough.
Right.
But there's a different type of toughness in football. It's uh, and that's the difference. Football from rugby to soccer. Football, you do take a different mentality, and a lot of the players, they had to be coached up on, of what it takes to play American football, because you are going to get hurt, and it is going to hurt. But you gotta learn to play with being in pain a little bit, and a lot of kids aren't used to that.
And as far as that went, I'm sure that, like you said, there's with the American people, they probably had a little bit more of understanding, but the native people to the area, was there just culturally different way to coach them? Did you have to learn how to, just like with anyone else, learn how to adjust your coaching to fit their needs?
I did had, and it was challenging. That was really hard because there's a certain element in American football that you have to get up, and it's the next play, and that's pretty foreign to a lot of people. Getting up, putting that next last play behind you, and coming out and executing the next play. They're not used to that, so you have to really coach kids to you know get up. What does it take to get back in that huddle and
Yeah.
shake off that last play? So
Get back up there
yeah,
and get
things
ready
like
to go
that.
in 10 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
So, and I told you a little bit about the offense we had to run, just because of just the knowledge of the game. So we ran a wishbone, and
Yeah.
and that really worked out well because I just put a couple rules together, and yeah, we had a great time running the ball down the field for sure.
Yep. Just have to teach people to run people over. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, not a whole lot of
um,
thinking sometimes. Sure.
so now you're back, right? So what you're back in Eagle Point is where you're at now,
Yep.
which another coach I know coached for a while there, but he's not doing that anymore. um, so what are you doing? What are you doing at Eagle Point?
Well, right now I'm a behavior specialist at the middle school, and I've been coaching high school football there. Last season I was the defensive coordinator, and upcoming season I'm looking to hand that job over to the young bucks. Somebody newer. Eric Johnson is the head coach over in Eagle Point. He came from Ontario. He was Ontario head coach. Yeah, and he's a good guy.
So that's like
great coach.
That must be a hotbed for Ontario coaches. It seems like, because that's where you guys are all ended up.
Yeah, Bill Taylor, Harry Hedrick, yeah, and myself, yes.
So let's talk about the mindset that you have and the mindset of kids today and how you've had to change over time. Because I know, like 20 years ago, we talked about this a little bit. 20 years ago, you could yell and scream at a kid. And I mean, it's basically cussing and screaming at kids, and it motivates them. But now you can't do that, right? So how did you have to adjust the way that you thought about things?
It was an easy transition, as being excited about being on the field and getting the players excited. What the minor adjustments that I had to make is understanding that developing relationships with each player, understanding that these kids come out and they're people first and they're athletes second. And that was in my earlier years, I wanted athletes. Give me an athlete, and your value to me earlier on was measured by your success on the field. What can you give me? And as I get older, that's been switched from a athlete first to person second, and switched those two. And that once I made that adjustment, is where I found a newfound success in reaching players. Then my philosophy was pretty much solidified. And Wes, I have like 3 principles now as a coach before I go into any situation. And it's expectations I have for my players. I will say, are you a good teammate? That's one. Are you a good teammate? And that's a big deal for me. And are you coachable? I'm going to put you in a position to be successful. I recognize these skills, but are you coachable? It's harder to coach, as you say, these newer kids, but those principles will always stand. And the third one is effort. I can't coach effort. When I put you on the field, oftentimes you'll hear there's some baseball a lot. The season is not when you get better. The season is when you make adjustments. Off season, and that's where you put the effort, whether it's the weight room, the gym, whatever sport that you're involved in. And I can't coach that, but I let the players know that that's probably one of the most important things to building what they're looking for. They want to be on the field. They want to be on the court. So what is it going to take to get there? And those are the principles that I kind of follow, relationships, person first, athlete second. And then, are you coachable? Are you a good teammate? And then what are you going to do? What kind of effort are you going to give?
Yeah, and that's great, because that's what it takes. I mean, you have to be able to motivate them, or you're never going to have anything that makes that successful just by doing that. And I like that. One of the things that I talk about a lot is the fact that you have to treat every single player differently. They're not all the same. Yeah. There's no cookie cutter way for it. And I remember vividly Coach Hedrick yelling and screaming at me, and it motivated me, where he could go over to the next kid, and if he did that to him, it would just ruin him, and they couldn't do it. But he was and it sounds like that's the way you're getting to, is where you've decided to be kind of a psychologist, and you have to motivate each kid differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. If I'm going to find a successful football team or any team, I've got to be able to have the ability to identify each player's strengths. What are they? As you know, I'll break it down simply. The profile of an offensive lineman is different from wide receiver. I know that's grossly obvious, but that's what you have to do in a more complex way, is start to identify those strengths. And I think that's where Coach Snow really helped me grow, is he knew I had limited physical skills. So let's put him in a position where he can be successful using more of the cerebral part of the game and being able to find those kids, those players. And you as a coach, when you look around, there's players that have limited skills, and they're only going to be. You're not going to put them in the lineup in the first four batters. They're never going to make the four. But where they're going to be is maybe they can get on base somewhere along the line because they can read that pitcher well enough to steal second base. Those kinds of things, and understanding the skill set that player brings, so they find value to the team. See, and that's been keeping players on the field because not everyone gets on the field. And I felt horrible as a coach in my early years. I wanted everyone to play, but that's not realistic. So what you have to do is find the strengths that each kid brings to the team, find that for them, help them nourish that, and develop it so they feel part of the team. And that's the hard part, is keeping those kids motivated. But it takes effort as a coach, right?
Yeah, that's a big struggle, and it's funny because as a person who coached for the last 4 years, I had a lot of insight into the fact of the way that like maybe someone else was treated or the way that I was treated on the field.
Sure.
Versus, because you don't know that. You're a young kid. You don't know what the adult thinking is behind the process. And sometimes you can't share that. And I have a lot of, I'm so happy that I had the people that I had, because now looking back, I look at it and I go, man, I had it really good. They really had my best interest at heart, whether I didn't like them or not. They were just doing the best for the team. And that's something that you got to create. So that's awesome that you're trying to find a way to make that work.
You do. And those kinds of coaches, I've studied, read a lot of books. Phil Jackson, I almost read all of his books because his success is not a secret. And a lot of the coaching philosophies that I've been able to, rub my chin on and go, I like that. It fits with my coaching philosophy and how my demeanor, like John Wooden, most people think how successful he was at UCLA, which he was, but oftentimes people don't know that he had like 20 losing seasons prior to that at a different college, and what he went through to then become that successful coach down the road. So, and good coaches, they invest in themselves as far as coaching philosophy, getting a nice sound, and they invest in people, surrounding themselves with people that know the game, study the game, and like Chris Peterson, Phil Snow, and others.
Yep. And that's a great way, that's kind of what I'm finding here with myself as well, is like I'm radiating towards these people who think the same way that I do. And it's just a great feeling when you know that that's happening.
Yeah.
So
yes,
we got, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, when you surround yourself with people that have that high motivation to be successful in a certain field, when we hear players that are untouchables, bless his, soul, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, what did they do after games? They went and took care of themselves, their bodies and stuff like that. What do we, even though we're not a Kobe or that level of player or a coach, always reflecting and always growing as a coach, surrounding ourselves with those like-minded people, like you're saying, reflecting, do an honest reevaluation of what you are and where you're going, because we're going to make mistakes, and being able to reflect honestly on those mistakes and move forward. Yeah, that's part of the key.
I have a question for you that kind of leads into this is, do you teach kids now to reflect on the game? Do you teach them other than just watching film? Because, we used to sit there at lunch every day and watch film, but I don't know that I really thought about that. I just watched what I was doing, and it wasn't really a reflection process.
In high school, it's very difficult to do that, because that is a skill that all colleges teach. Kids that really excel in that arena in the college do a lot of that self-reflection. In high school, that's really hard to teach. But if a coach can get a player to learn what they're doing and how to make adjustments and take that reflection of game film, move it onto the practice field, and work on those skills. That's, I know that seems like real simple stuff, but kids really have to be taught how to reflect, and what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand that because I taught a class one year, out of my 4 years of teaching, 1 year was actually an advisory class where we had to teach kids to reflect, and they hated it. These
Oh
high school
yeah,
seniors didn't like doing it. They can't stand it. They don't understand it. But,
no,
15 years later, when I go back to college, I started to realize that it's a very big part of my process. So it is a tough one, I think, to kind of figure out.
yeah, there, and it is. The sooner you're able to, I guess, peel back those areas that sometimes seem guarded, or this is kind of the yucky part. I don't want to expose that. But once you start cleaning that stuff out, and start getting on a healthier pathway to the direction you're going, the better things will turn out for you. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's great. I think it's exciting that the way things are going. I'm glad that you were able to be here. I have one last question for you. Okay. This is
Sure.
kind of the kicker. We talk about success and how it is. And I think I probably know this answer, but we're going to ask you anyway, because for me, the show's called Shaping Success. And I like to define how each person defines their own success, because it's different for everyone. Right. And,
It is.
you
Yeah.
can be happy doing something, for me, teaching just wasn't it, but for you and coaching, and, coaching's that kind of thing. So how do you define success for yourself? How do you determine whether you're successful?
Well, it has evolved to the point where I'm today, and a lot of like I said, the coaches I surrounded myself with, listening, and trying to find out what it is that I guess that silver bullet, you might say. And what I did learn is that it's not about money. It never was. And it's not about awards or winning games. It never was. All the years combined, 30 plus years of coaching, I would say John Wooden says it best. And it's his quote about it. This is what it says. It says, peace of mind is the direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best that you're capable of becoming. And that's it for me. When you can coach a player or be the coach, when you walk off that field and you gave it all in practice, in that game, and it doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. I know a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on that scoreboard, but when you can walk away and know that to me is success. And I've won a lot of football games. I've got a few championship rings, and those feel good. But when I can watch a player like yourself find success in other areas, I know as a coach that what I've done is I help create a player, a person, developing into something, more than themselves at that time.
I love that. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Because that's what it's about. It's not just about how successful you are on or off the field. It's how you are as a person, and that's bigger, I think, than anything. So, hey,
Yeah.
we talked about your time in the Middle East, and I wanted you to show that ring because you didn't get a chance to show the ring. We kind of broke up.
The national championship, the Abu Dhabi Wildcats, right there. Coach O.
And so, how many seasons did it take before you won that championship?
Two.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the things I learned about coaching, I'm going to tell you a story in this game, okay, about discipline. If you have a moment for that.
Oh yeah.
We there was about a minute left in the game, and I run out on it was 4th and 1, and we were down by 6 points, and about a minute left, and I run out on the field, and we were overloading our strong side because we're going to run a toss, and the running back says, "Hey coach, let's overload the right side, and let's toss it to the opposite side." And for a second there, it was like listening to your players, right? You prepare all this stuff and have all this scouting reports and everything, and none of that matters anymore. It's a gut feeling that you get from your player that knows he's been on the field all game long and he sees something. And as a coach, I just kind of said, you know what? Let's do that. So we designed that play real quickly in the dirt right before that play, and we ended up scoring on that play. We overloaded that right side. They stacked, that side. When we faked it that direction and came back the other way, there was nobody there. And that to me was that player calling the play that ended up winning the game didn't come from me. It came from that player. And, I was so proud of that player. That to me it was a reflection on those kids becoming, players throughout the season
Players,
and being able to do that. Yeah. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That's pretty sweet when the students become the coach, That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, in a moment like that. And then, it's tied up, and then we kicked the field goal, extra point to win the game. So, yeah, that was an exciting day for sure.
Well, hey, it's been very exciting to have you on the show. I'm glad that you were able to do this. It's so fun to talk to you later on as an adult versus 20 years later as a kid that I was, not understanding a lot of stuff and looking at it in a different light. So I really appreciate you being on here.
Oh, yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yep, it's been great. Well, if you feel the show has brought you any value, please feel free to share it. That would help me out quite a bit. Thank you for tuning in. My challenge to you is to find the shape of your success.
This was Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley, brought to you by Aggressive Marketing Solutions. If you need a team of marketers on social media, all you need to do to start is text Wes 2020 to 541-709-6502, 541-709-6502. That is Aggressive Marketing Solutions. Have a great day. See you next time.